City of Cottonwood Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, Monday, May 18, 2020, 6 p.m. in the City Community Center. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hart.
Present.
Commissioner Dow.
Here.
Commissioner Sherman. Here. Commissioner Maston. Here. Vice Chairman Dowling. Chairman Williams.
Here. Okay, next item on our agenda is approval of the meeting minutes from our March 16th, 2020 meeting. Do I hear any deletions, additions, corrections? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So approved. Scott, informational report, information, and then we have a new recorder today.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commission. I would like to introduce our new Administrative Assistant for Community Development, Cassidy Presmick. She joined us middle of March. She's been here for about 2 months now, but is finally able to actually work in the office.
Good. Welcome aboard, Cassidy.
She'll
Good.
be coordinating these meetings. You'll be seeing her here. She'll be emailing you when packets are ready, whatever questions you guys have, anything like that. So
Good.
We're glad to have her. She's doing a really good job.
Keep you in line.
Yes, somebody needs to.
All right. That's a big job, Cassidy. You got to do that.
Couple more things, Mr. Chairman. We got a question from the commission regarding the Gateway Greens project that's going down the road here on Main Street. It is moving very slow. They're phase 2. It's that combination residential upstairs, commercial downstairs. They completed the first part of it several years ago and waited a few years to get the second part. But it is going slow, but it is still moving forward. We've been doing inspections out there. I think the most recent was last week. So it is still going on.
And it was a pre-approved project?
It was a pre-approved project. They got their initial approval numerous years ago, and then they didn't change anything enough that needed any reapprovals. There was no time limit on the phasing of it.
Right.
So they're just continuing with their original approval.
Continuing.
And then also, as you know, a little bit different location here to help with the social distancing and maintaining the guidelines from CDC on having these meetings. We will be having a June meeting. We have a couple things coming up for June. Whether it's here or back in the council chambers is still to be decided, but we will definitely let you know so you can expect where to be.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Yep.
All right. Onward to old business. First order of business is DR 19013, Verizon Retail Store Revisited. Mr. Davis, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. As you mentioned, this is a revision of the Verizon Store application that you saw back in December. It's located on Main Street, on the east side of Main Street, directly across from the intersection with Camino Real. C1 zoning, surrounded by C1 and C2 zoning. The proposal is for 2,000 square foot single-story retail, as it was before. And the access is from Main Street, but also with a shared access from the existing commercial property to the southeast. They have the required parking spaces. They have almost double the required vehicle parking spaces and the bicycle parking spaces as well. Zooming in a little closer on that lot, you can see the footprint of the old Woody's canopy directly across from Camino Real. It currently has 2 driveways, one directly teed up with Camino Real and one to the south. The south driveway is a little farther south than that. The original proposal that you saw back in December used the south driveway. However, with that location, ADOT reviewed that after the December meeting and said, No, you will not use that driveway. You will use the north driveway instead that tees up better with the Camino Real for turning motions. So this is the current site plan. The north driveway is being used to line up with Camino Real, and also you see the arrow going to the south. Shared access is going to be required to the existing development to the south. ADOT still hasn't completely signed off on this plan. They like it better. They're a little concerned about turning motions into that north driveway when people are backing out of the parking spaces. They're also concerned about possible conflicts with trash pickup, and the trash is located on the north side of the building. So that is why they have suggested, and we are also suggesting, a new stipulation to be added. So if anybody makes a motion on this, we would appreciate adding this one on there. The trash pickup shall be limited to non-business hours to minimize that potential conflict with sanitation trucks. Previous building elevations you saw showed kind of a gray color scheme. Current elevations, they took some comments that the commission made last time in December and went with more earth tones, some stacked stone along the lower levels. So you can see a pretty dramatic change in the color on all the elevations. Pictures of the site. This is the Woody's canopy that we all know, and behind it is in the fenced area is a soil mitigation area that they worked with ADEQ to put in to remediate some of the contaminated soil. This is the north driveway that would be used. This is looking out from where the canopy is. That it shows you how it's aligned with the Camino Real intersection. So properties to the south, this is the shopping center to the south that would have the shared access. To the northwest, that is behind all those trees there, is the Mount Hope Foods store. And looking to the northeast on the property, you can see that the property drops off pretty dramatically, about 8, 9, 10 feet to the northeast once you get past the canopy area, and you see a little parking area at the end of a driveway down there. So these are views onto Main Street looking southeast. This clicker is pretty sensitive. Looking northwest on Main Street. That concludes our presentation. We do have a representative available on the phone right in front of us here. And so he may add some things to the presentation, but I'd be happy to respond to any questions if you have them right now.
Questions? Gary, Commissioner Hart.
Robert. Are they planning on using that hatched area as the pedestrian walk?
Along the driveway going down the hill to the
Going
extra
down
parking?
the hill?
Yes, that's why that's there.
Okay, has any calculations been done on the percent of slope?
The applicant might be able to answer that. I don't have that information.
Okay.
Sure. This is Peter Crandall with Platinum CRE. My address is 5900 East 2nd Street, Scottsdale, Arizona. We are the developer on this project. Chair, members of the commission, to answer that question regarding hatching, from the store down to what we call the satellite parking area that will be hatched. The slope on it, does kind of drop. Just kind of looking at the elevation, you have about a 4% roughly drop on the grade as it goes down, spread from the top to the bottom roughly.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Dowell, do you have any questions?
The only question I have is for the applicant.
Okay.
No.
Gary, any questions?
I have no questions.
Okay. Gary, that's fine. Okay. The applicant, if you have any other details you'd like to share with us at this point?
Chair, members of the commission, just basically piggybacking on top of Gary's comment, this was basically going back before planning commission due to the changes that were required by ADOT with the driveway shifting from the south to the north for safety purposes. Unfortunately, their comment kind of came in late, so it wasn't available at the time in December, so hence requiring to go back through planning commission for approval. Other than that, we still intend to proceed forward with what is shown here on the plan. Of course, obtaining ADOT approval for the right-of-way and driveway permit that's necessary.
Okay. Commissioner Hart, any questions for the applicant?
When I was looking at the plan, the one thing did anybody ever think of like moving the trash enclosure over towards the back there? Maybe adjacent to those last two parking spaces? Or is it too steep there by the time we get there?
Could you hear that question, sir?
I did not. If you could speak more direct, it was kind of echoey.
Yeah.
Please.
Sorry about that. Did anybody consider moving the trash enclosure to over near the two parking spaces near the rear of the building?
Chair, members of the commission, we had actually looked at putting that trash enclosure near there, but because of the parking requirements to be on the top, we were unable to satisfy that. We looked at putting it down in the lower elevation area of that satellite parking area, but feel that a truck, if there were cars parked back there, would create an issue. So we felt it was best to put it near the front of the property, adjacent, just north of the building there. To the case that ADOT brings up the question of the truck, trash truck and on-site circulation, again, we are open to that condition where the truck would basically service the pickup of the refuse while the store is, closed, so that wouldn't create any potential safety issues in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Dow.
Nope, that just answered my question, so I'm good.
Commissioner Maston?
Nope, that was it.
Okay. Commissioner,
I have no
any questions?
I'm good.
You're good?
Yeah.
All right. No, that answered my question too, concern about that trash enclosure. I understand you still have to get a final ADOT approval.
That is one of the stipulations that we're recommending, yes.
Right. And so we want to add on the stipulation to our stipulations about the trash. Yeah. Okay. I don't have any other questions. I'll close the floor to the public. Commissioner Hart, your comments and views, sir.
Well, I actually like what they did. I think the addition of the wainscot really helped the elevation, turning the roofs back so that they're hip roofs now rather than just cut off, also helped improve the look of the building. And I like what they're doing with the landscaping. That shading over on the side near the whole earth is really helping shade what would have been some pretty big flat walls, so they're not going to be so bad looking. So I think they did a pretty good job.
Commissioner Dow, your comments, sir.
I think the project, I like the project to begin with, but I really like the project now, so I think it's going to be a good project.
Commissioner Maston.
I agree. I like the landscaping. I am excited to see the trees actually there on that road. That road needs trees pretty bad.
Mr. Sherman?
I really like the whole plan. It looks very well thought out. I like the way the road comes in. It makes more sense. And the trash pickup, I think that would be a good idea too. That would alleviate that problem.
Good. Yes, I second those thoughts. This is the new paint scheme, the stacked block facade really adds to the building, I think, makes it more attractive. We've got a better product now, so in my view. Mr. Dow, I'll call on you, please, to give us a motion, please, sir.
I'd make a motion to approve the design review 19-013, subject to the following stipulations. Number one, the project shall be developed in conformance with the development plans as approved at the Planning and Zoning Commission at the May 18th, 2020 meeting. Number two, the project shall conform to Code Review Board comments dated November 6th, 2019. Number three, any irrigation and fire lines shall have an approved backflow device installed and certified before water service is permitted. If an additional fire line is required, the contractor will be responsible to arrange the tap by a licensed and certified contractor. Number four, the project shall have a signed shared access agreement with the owner of the property to the south, ensuring a second means of access to the property. Number five, the property shall comply with all building, engineering, and fire department requirements. Number six, a certificate of zoning compliance documenting the completion of conditions shall be issued within 24 months of the Planning Commission's action. Number seven, the development shall be subject to Arizona Department of Transportation, ADOT review and approval. Number eight, any further significant revision to the site plan shall require a new application for design review. Number nine, stipulation that trash pickup will only be conducted during non-business hours. And number 10, any other stipulations the Planning and Zoning Commission deems necessary.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Hart seconds. Commissioner Dow's motion. Before we take a roll call vote real quick to the applicant, you've seen these stipulations. Are you fine with those? Is he still there? Sir, are you still there on phone?
Yes, I'm here. Can you speak clearly in the phone?
Yes,
I couldn't hear
yes.
that,
Are you, before we vote on this, I should add, have you reviewed these stipulations and they meet with your approval?
Yes, the stipulations do meet our approval of the new additions along with the existing ones from the staff report.
Very good, thank you. Cassidy, would you please give a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Hart?
Aye.
Commissioner Dow?
Aye.
Commissioner Sherman?
Aye.
Commissioner Maston?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Dowling, Chairman Williams?
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Good luck. We're looking forward to that old Woody's building coming down.
Yeah, we do too.
All right.
Thank you, Chair and members of the Commission.
Thank you for getting on the phone with us. We appreciate it. All right. Good. Our next item is ZO 20003, amendment to Section 404, General Provisions, amending Section 404-W, outside display use of public sidewalks. Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. It's me again, Gary Davis, Community Development. This is a proposal to amend our zoning code with respect to display on sidewalks. Right now, our Section 404W outside display only has a short provision that any outside display must be approved by the Development Review Board, P&Z Commission, and that's it. That's all we've got in the code. We do have a sidewalk cafe policy that dates back to 2004, but it's not in the code, so it's just a policy. There was a desire to codify and make things easier to follow and consistent. So that's the impetus for this. Proposed new requirements are basically in 3 components. Number 1 is display of merchandise. Number 2 is permanent structures. And number 3 is governing sidewalk cafes. Starting with the first one, the display of merchandise on sidewalk, here are some of the main highlights, if you will, of what's being proposed. First of all, the goods being on display can be only from that store, not brought in from other places. It's specific to the store that it's in front of. Requires a 5-foot clear pedestrian way that's clear for ADA access. 50% of linear frontage is the maximum. In other words, you can't take up the whole width of the store. It's only up to 50% of the frontage of the store that could be used for display. Display would have to be removed after business hours, doesn't sit out there overnight. No dangerous, bulky, or junky items, nothing that's flammable or bulky, blocking the way. Moving to the permanent structures that are affixed to the sidewalk. An encroachment permit would be required to place anything permanent in the right-of-way. That goes through Public Works. The city may revoke that encroachment permit if need be. The store owner is responsible for maintenance, and the structure needs to be removable without damage to the building, and again, a 5-foot clear pedestrian way for the sidewalk is required. On sidewalk cafes, this would require code review board, the review by various staff members to make sure that it meets all codes. Again, the 5-foot clear pedestrian way is a requirement on this. It may be separated by a permanent structure like we saw in the previous item, and it must meet the county health and state liquor board standards. Service and transactions should be from inside, with the exception of maybe handheld swipe cards on notepads that you see sometimes. Other than that, though, most business and most food service has to originate from inside the building and not be outside. And finally, insurance would be required. So that's what's being proposed. You've got the full text in front of you. So if there are any questions, let me know. We've not heard any objections from the downtown community on this. They're aware of it, and they're interested. They're interested in seeing that it's going forward too. If we get a recommendation from the Planning Commission tonight, we can take it for a first reading of the ordinance that would adopt this on June 2nd, and a second reading and possible adoption on June 16th.
Very good. Commissioner Hart, any?
Mr. Chairman, real quick, I do want to let you know too that this was discussed with City Council at their January work session, and they are in favor of moving forward with this type of amendment to the zoning ordinance.
Very good. Commissioner Hart, any questions?
Just like a clarification on the item about the barriers. What your intent is so that the seating areas aren't extending out onto the sidewalks, but they can have a display area outside. The barrier, is that the intent?
Well, it doesn't really address that. There are standards in the first part for the outside display, and it has to be adjacent to the building. Something I didn't put in the highlights here is that that it has to be adjacent to the building rather than having the building and then the sidewalk clear area and then the display out by the curb. That's not permitted under these rules. Any display would have to be adjacent to the building. I suppose it would be possible if the store owner wanted to separate with a barrier, but
well, no, you have a requirement for a barrier.
In which section?
Let's see, which one was it? The fourth one down. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Which letter are you looking at?
I'm looking at the memo. Sidewalk cafe policy.
Yeah, I think that's the 04 one, though.
Oh,
Oh, the fourth bullet in the staff report. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I was looking at the code. Yes, the sidewalk cafe.
Commissioner Hart, Chairman.
Yes.
That's the sidewalk cafe policy that was in effect since 2004 that
Oh, yes.
required
so
that
we're
barrier.
replacing that.
We are replacing that with these new
Okay.
regulations that takes that out.
Okay, yeah, because I was thinking,
Yeah.
yeah, that's sort of a hindrance.
Yeah,
This
we
time
include-
it's optional.
It seems onerous.
Okay.
Yeah, we included the cafe policy so you had a background of what used to be or what currently is and what we're trying to replace.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions, sir?
No, sir.
Commissioner Dowd?
Sir, where else besides the downtown area do you see this affecting? I mean, I know it's downtown, Old Town.
Right. I don't believe there are a whole lot of areas where the building comes right up to the sidewalk and there's an opportunity to display. Maybe a couple of older buildings on South Main. Other than that, I can't think of anything. Can you, Scott?
No, not specifically. You can get it a little bit further on Main, just outside of Old Town, or depending on how you look at it, what people would consider Old Town. When you get down further, probably up until about 10th Street, you could still see some of it. Most of the rest of town has that setback on the buildings. However, within the entertainment district, there is the potential that they could be right up against the street, and this could affect them as well.
In the future?
In the future, yes.
Okay.
Now, the ADA 5-foot clear area could be an issue there because on South Main, most of those sidewalks are probably 5-6 feet in width anyway. So that would preclude putting displays right on the sidewalk, maybe behind it. Again, it depends on the individual location.
I was just trying to make sure I wasn't missing, because I was trying to run it through my brain and make sure there wasn't any other parts that were there. How many other businesses are affected by this? Well, let me restate that. In your best estimate, how many businesses down here in Old Town are going to have to change permanent structures to accommodate this?
I'm not aware of any. Are you, Scott?
No, we're not going to go retroactively make anybody change anything that they already have right now. This is moving forward. If there is a hazard, we'll look into it. But
So
right
everybody right now is currently within ADA. Everybody currently follows the ADA 5-foot mark with permanent structures.
I would have to go measure. I don't think everybody falls within 5 feet. 5 feet is not necessarily ADA's requirement. That's our requirement. ADA, I believe, is up to 3 feet.
I think it's 36.
36.
I think.
We did have recently a concern of a newer one that was installed that did not meet that requirement. We've since gone out in the last week or two, spoke with them, and they have come into compliance now. So the 5 foot, again, is not directed by ADA. That's what we're preferring. But as long as they do meet ADA, we're going to be okay with that.
Okay, so everybody right now currently with permanent structures in Old Town meets ADA requirements?
Yes. As far as we can tell, yes.
Okay, that's my
And
only.
there are places where most of the way is 5 feet wide, but there are a few places where there are light poles where it necks down to maybe 3.5 feet. But overall, they're observing that 5 feet. And in general, that 5 feet is an ADA guideline for being able to have people pass in 2 different directions.
That's obviously my one big concern is making sure that Old Town is accessible for ADA. And then the last one, do businesses currently have insurance on those outside areas? Do we know?
They're supposed to. We'd have to go through and speak with our risk management to find out, make sure, but they're pretty on top of ensuring that the ones who are supposed to do have it.
Okay, so right now it's kind of already a policy that they.
Yes.
Okay. I don't have any
Yes.
questions, sir.
Just a couple, and they're kind of all over the place. I saw that there was a noise inclusion there. Does that include live music, or is live music covered by another guideline? Because I know that some of the wineries and bars downtown do have live music, and it's outdoors, and it does carry. Is that going to affect their business?
Yeah, I think you're referring to item 1J, which is on the second page of the proposed amendments.
Yeah.
Amplified music associated with the business shall not extend beyond the immediate area of outside display. I believe that's intended to curb the boombox kind of thing, where somebody puts their background music out on the sidewalk. I don't think this would hamper events.
Yeah, this isn't looking to say those places can't continue to do what they're doing. It's if you're going to have display outside and you want that kind of background ambience, that music, that you need to make sure that it's contained within your area and you're not just blasting it out your front door and into the neighboring store or you know, into the areas where people want to walk through and continue on. So, this is not going to affect the wineries and their outdoor music and the things that they do. That's not going to be affected by this.
Okay. And then the other question was, what would the process be for approving non-permanent structures? Like, does somebody come and say, this is the furniture I would like to buy to put a table outside that then I would bring in at night? Because I saw that also requires approval.
If it's just bringing a rack out or something like that, I don't believe this would require any kind of a formal approval.
Okay.
This has parameters for the rack can't be more than 6 feet tall or things like that, in which case, you know, that would come to our attention eventually probably, but no, we don't have a provision for that. It's just what we're concerned about is permanent structures, making sure they're not located in a position that creates a problem.
Okay. All right, those are all my questions right now.
Being facetious, does the noise thing apply to the Christmas music display? Commissioner Sherman.
I don't have any questions. I think a lot of this has been covered, and I understand.
Yeah. Yes, I'm satisfied with, and good to see this codified. This is, as we found out, government directives sometimes don't get followed and can be exceptions, so it's good to codify it and go forward. I think it's well written up. With that, Commissioner Dow, would you please entertain a motion from you, please, sir?
I would move to recommend approval to the City Council Amendment Section 404.W, replacing current regulations for outside display with new regulations for use of public sidewalks.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second. I'll second.
Commissioner Sherman?
Yes.
Seconds. Commissioner Dowell's motion. Cassidy, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Hart?
Aye.
Commissioner Dowell?
Aye.
Commissioner Sherman?
Aye.
Commissioner Maston?
Aye.
Chairman Williams?
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. And on to the City Council. All right, Mr. Davis, you're up again. CEO 220-004 Amendment to Section 414, R2 Zoning District, Amendment Section 4014D, Property Development Standards.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. This is a proposal to make a very small change in our zoning code regarding rear yard setbacks in the R2 zone. R2 and R3 are both multifamily zones with similar densities. R3 is a slightly more dense zone, but when we've had projects come through and highlight an issue where most of the setbacks are very similar. R2 has a larger front setback, but R2 has identical side setbacks to R3. And the rear yard setback for R2 is 20 feet, and it's measured to the center of an alley where there is an alley, whereas R3 is 15 feet, again measured to the rear lot line or the center of an alley where there's an alley. What we're proposing here to give builders, planners, developers more leeway, more flexibility in siting buildings is to add another provision saying where it's abutting another multifamily use, where this R2 zone is abutting another existing use that's multifamily, whether it's R3 or R2, then the rear setback would be 15 feet, and that would be consistent with the R3. And the way it would actually be worded is, this is the way it shows up in the code right now. In R3, the minimum rear yard setback is 20 feet, and where there's an alley, it's measured to the center line of an alley. We would simply add a section C, where the rear lot line abuts a multifamily use, there shall be a rear yard setback of not less than 15 feet. So the way this is worded, if that lot in R2 is up against R1 or a single-family zone or commercial or anything like that, the setback would still be 20 feet, and that would not change.
Does the R3 have a similar, or is it just 20 feet no matter, or 15 feet?
It's 15 feet regardless.
Regardless, okay. Mr. Hart, any questions, sir?
I have no questions. It seems pretty reasonable to me.
All right. Mr. Dow?
I don't have any questions.
No questions?
No, sir.
Okay. Commissioner Matson?
No questions.
Commissioner Sherman?
No questions.
This is an easy one. Yeah, straightforward. Again, that sounds good. Make it form easier for everybody to figure out.
Give people a little more flexibility.
Okay. Commissioner Dowell, again, calling you, sir, for a motion.
I would move to recommend approval to the City Council amendments to Section 414.d, changing minimum rear yard setback standards to the R2 zoning district.
Second.
I'll second.
Commissioner Matson seconds that motion from Commissioner Dowell. Roll call vote, please. Okay.
Commissioner Hart,
Aye.
Commissioner Dow,
Aye.
Commissioner Sherman,
Aye.
Commissioner Maston,
Aye.
Chairman Dow. Chairman Williams, sorry.
Aye. Motion unanimously carried. Onward and upward. Very good. I think that we don't have any discussion items or.
No, Mr. Chairman, I do not have any discussion items.
Do we have anything in the pipeline you can possibly at this point long enough to sort of enlighten us, if anything?
There's a few projects that have been delayed due to the ongoing circumstances, Circle K being one of them. One of the housing projects, the Inspiration project, has been delayed a little bit. All indications, though, that we've been given from the applicants, the developers, is that they're still wanting to move forward. They're still going to move forward. It's just been a little bit put on hold. So the project up the hill here is still moving forward. Every indication that we've been given on these larger projects are that they're still going to be moving forward.
Okay. Any new projects far enough along to discuss or coming up?
Not really.
Not at this
Everything's kind of slowed down a little bit. We have still received quite a few building permits for residential and some of the existing subdivisions. They're still moving forward. Our building department has maintained busyness throughout this, so we're looking at picking up again. We've got a couple smaller projects coming to you in June, a couple more text amendments coming to you in June, but I think we're going to be moving forward quite a bit.
Good, good. Mr. City Manager, do you have any words of wisdom for us tonight?
No, sir. I don't know if you mentioned the Belfry.
Yes.
They're still working very hard on that. They'll be open this summer. That's all.
Good. It's looking good, yeah. New improvements are looking good on that. Very good. With that, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I would motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
That was the fastest one ever.